Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Book to Block, a series where I bring my fantasy novel to life in Minecraft, one block at a time. In the last episode, we finished off on the housing district over here. You can see it's really starting to fill up our build of this lake village here. Just a little recap of what's been built so far. Over on this side, we've got our farming district, so all the food that supplies this little village, as well as the main city once that's built. I still got to work on the tree episode, so that'll be coming out pretty soon, so keep an eye out for that, where I'll do custom trees for this apple orchard, as well as the big forest over on this side. Over here, we got the entrance, so I got to make up a little fancier entrance here, with maybe like a little guard post on the side here. We got our little tavern here to keep everyone well hydrated, as well as some little inn in the top floor for some travelers to settle in. We got our little market here, selling things, just basic things for the village. Still haven't come up with an idea here. I'm thinking possibly doing a candle maker, because everyone in this village uses these lanterns and candles for lighting. So I thought maybe someone might monopolize that kind of business there. Coming over here, we've got our forge or smith here. So the blacksmith works out here, forging all the tools and weapons for the village, and maybe exporting some to the main village or main city, perhaps. Then we got our big watchtower here to keep an eye on any dangers that might approach on the outskirts of the village, as well as to send signals to the main city. Down over here, we got our docks for our fishing, as this is a kind of fishing village. So we got our nice large lake here. And then over here we got our smokehouse and then storage for the fish after it is smoked, getting it ready to either send to market or export to other places. And then, as I said in the last episode, we built all these houses up here. So we got somewhere to live for all the villagers within the village. In today's episode, we're going to work on this big empty area here. I'm going to build a big old church right here, and then have a slightly large graveyard on this side. Just somewhere, because in this world, fantasy world, there are a religion where the dwarves worship the light. I still haven't come up with names or kind of symbols yet, so things are kind of ambiguous in the story. But I think a church would be very well fitted for this village here. So let's get into a slightly longer time lapse than usual. It's a couple minutes long, so it shows me building kind of the whole process of what I go through when I'm designing or doing a build. So you can kind of follow along and see how I come up with these different builds from nothing to kind of concept stage to all the texturing and coloring. And then after that, we can do some smaller details that I don't include in time lapse. So without further ado, let's get to it. Alright, and here we are. A little bit of a stained glass thing here, just kind of randomly throwing colors in just to make it a little different from just the yellow you saw in the time lapse there. I'm just going to go around and show off little bits that maybe got missed in the time lapse. Just so if you ever want to follow along on some of these building techniques that I do, you can kind of copy in your own way. I really had trouble doing this part here. It was very difficult to kind of get a smooth kind of, because I start with these, so it's nice basic straight lines, nice and smooth, and then I kind of have to try and copy that but on a weird angle. So I did the best I could. Seems pretty decent. Still not the favorite on these parts, so I might add in things like this. That kind of makes it a little smoother. Perhaps maybe a slab instead. Let's see if I find one. No, let's just grab one. Nope, we're using spruce. Something like that, maybe. Just adds a little bit more. You don't want this bit too high up. Kind of pushed it back as much as I could. I'll go like that, fix that up. So, very decent on the outside. Decent amount of detail, not a lot. Went for more of the wooden roof. Didn't really go for the tough on the outline. But I made it stone and tough for the big bits of like the tower and such. So up here we got our bell, so the clock tower bell. You can get it into here. I snuck a little bell in here, so if you can get it from the right side and don't have to tinker on. So it's technically working, so we can kind of see that. So now let's head on to the inside. So not much has changed from when I did the time lapse, so I still had to do a lot of detailing in empty spaces. We kind of have our tower here. I'll probably put a ladder up here so that we can actually get to the bell itself. So let's go up here, fill that in. There we go. One more up. So you got access to the bell now. So if anyone needs to ring it for the different times of day and such. I might remove this so that the sun can kind of shine further into the building here. But I've kind of gone for this dragon skeleton type thing. So it was very difficult to kind of get one down to scale of this. The head still feels a little bit too big for the body, but it's all about just detailing and imagination kind of thing. You kind of have to suspend a little bit of imagination just for this. Fix that up. I got these different chandeliers that I saw, so I using the yellow again because the worshipping of the light, I guess. So there are a couple chandeliers throughout for lighting, because at first it was way too dark in here, even with all the windows. Since I don't have any kind of skylight windows, it's kind of hard to keep it lit. Got this little kind of like annex on the side here, so this will go into the graveyard on the side here. And then we can kind of come up here, we got the podium, you can kind of sneak your way through the skeleton, and you're up on the altar with your book to read your sermons and such to all the villagers. Quite a few more benches than it seems villagers, but maybe a lot of people come to visit and such. But this is kind of how I went with the building. Kind of got a little fancy with the roof here, using the different stairs, kind of keeping with the same the dark that was on the outside. I mimicked on the inside. But I think we just got to add a little bit more detail in here, and then finish off with the graveyard here, and then do the bone mealing around the side just so it's not so flat along the edge. So let's get to the detailing now. Alright, so here we come. I've opened up this area here just so that the sun can shine through our stained glass. It actually goes onto the floor with the shaders, which is quite nice. Then we've got the ladder, which heads all the way up to our bell. Bring that. Gives a nice view of the village from here. You can see all over. We head on back in. So I've added in a couple flowers. Worked a little bit. I found this banner pattern online, changed it slightly. But it's just a good temporary one for, I guess, the dwarves. They worship the mountain and the light that is provided from the sun sort of thing. Just a quick little thing I worked up. So temporary, that's what this church will kind of be. This will be the banner that they fly, sort of thing. Got a couple of nooks of books, lots of books for a church. They're handling all sorts of different knowledge and such. Got these little tables on each of the windows, some with potted plants, and then if I head around to this side, same thing for each of the windows. They've got a table, but some of them have candles, more of these books, just to fill in the space, add a little bit of color. Got some more of these banners here. Swapped out the yellow on this one for these banners, and then I add in a couple more lights. So up here with the bamboo trapdoor and then just the ochre fog light, it just adds a little bit more light to the area. I also added one down in here, can't really be seen, but it just adds a bit more light to this front area so it's not as dark and gloomy. Added in a couple of paintings. This is one of the new ones, the sunflower one. I guess if we go sunflower, so it's this one here, and then just the sunset one over here. So sunset, this one here. Added in a couple more just so the walls had something breaking up. I went in, added in some of the tough bricks to break up the stone bricks, just a little bit more texturing and detail for the whole thing. So that now we've got the internals of this church all nice and done. If you can think of any other kind of little details to add to fill in the space a bit more or break up some boring spots, let me know. Ooh, that's quite nice. Didn't realize it did the sun rays too. But now let's head on over to the graveyard. Alright, so now that we're done with the internal details, we can move on out here to the graveyard. So I've kind of made a mock little grave here, so using tough brick slabs and then polished tough. So the bottom bits and then kind of the headstone. And using this wall, but using the tinker or your debug stick, you can spread it out and it kind of makes a smoother top to bit, almost like a cross, but not quite, because it's not exactly that's not our symbol for this religion. So then I can put a headstone on, so whatever needs to be written on there, who lies there and such. And then for the kind of wall, I'm thinking going like this. So it's similar in aspect to our outer wall, but we're using the iron bars now, and then tossing some lanterns on top of walls. I'll mix in a little bit of moss just for a little bit more detail in that aspect. But so we're gonna now go through and market the area. So my plan for this area is going to be like a nice little walking park just to fill in the gaps because I don't want to have any more buildings kind of back here. It'd kind of feel like they're just kind of shoved in the back. So I'm going to have a nice path that goes along here. It'll come out to around here. So this is kind of the area I want for the graveyard. So let's mark it off around here. And then kind of goes into here. We'll have a small entrance here with a very short path. And then we have the entrance from inside the church itself coming from there. Have it like a little path, so let's grab a path block, I'll place. So I think we're going to put the entrance right about there. So we'll have a path going there. And then we need a path coming from here to here, so let's curve it a little bit. And then also within, so we want to have rows, so we're going to have a couple graves here. So we'll do one line here, and then we'll do one curved line here, and then we'll have another entrance over on this side. So if you want to come in through the park, you can kind of sneak in, like this will be the kind of the back exit. So now let's get to plotting the wall and then get some graves in there. Alright, so I've kind of fleshed out the design a little bit better. I have it connecting up to here. Might have it blend in with the bricks a little bit, just so it's not so abrupt. I got my entrance here, about 3 blocks diagonal wide. A nice wide path coming in, so we can kind of expand this. I'll use the noise painter to kind of continue this pattern on along inside. So then I thicken this up to 2 wide for the pathing. From there and here, so we got a slightly smaller kind of back exit, not as much use goes through this one. And then brought it up to the door. So you can kind of spread that out, and then it just kind of meets up against this wall. So the next thing to do is to add in all of the iron bars and figure out how often I want to kind of have these posts. I'll probably do it maybe half as often as these ones on the outside. So approximately this distance. So maybe here, and then get them on there, just to have a little bit more concentrated light, and because we're inside the village now. So let's do a little short time lapse of me fixing up the wall. Alright, so there's the wall, kind of a little basic shape of that. I went in and added in these little light fixtures. So it's just 3 walls on top of each other. So 1, 2, and 3. Lower the speed down. And then you grab a lantern, toss it on top. And then whilst I'm using the tinker, I can grab and I can just bring out these walls. You can either bring it out this much or with this bit on top. I'd like it a little bit with this because it gives it more shape. Got a little lighting within. It's best to do this stuff when it's like night out so you can kind of see the light distribution. If it was like a survival world, you'd want to do it so that you have no dark spots where mobs can spawn. But since this is kind of like a creative, just building world, it's just more of the atmosphere you want to kind of bring to the area. So the next up is adding these gravestones. So first we're going to mark out with the tough bricks where we want them. So don't want them on the main path too much. This might be just an area for something else. But since this is kind of an offshoot, we can add in a couple here. So making sure there's space enough for the back bit. So let's grab all the blocks whilst we're over here. So we needs to be there, but we don't want it against the path, so I'll toss it back one more. I'll make the small little details afterwards, after I've kind of planned out the area. Grab those, a couple more. And you kind of just want to play with the spacing, because this isn't like a super advanced, I mean, it's a large church, but it's not like a super high-end graveyard. You kind of want to have it scattered around. Like even this might be too uniform for my liking, so toss that one back a little bit. And then I'm just going to go in with just the bricks for now. Just place these in a little bit. That's good. Maybe some along here. Move these guys up. So I'll just grab these. Toss those in here. I'm going to offset this one a little bit. There we go. What I could do is I could just grab clones of this and just make that like this. That kind of works a little bit faster. A little difficult to control sometimes. I'm going to flip it. There, there. And let's squeeze one more in here. So then I'm going to fill in the rest of these. Alright, and that adds a little bit more to this. So I think got a little unused space here, so we can bring another offshoot back here. Bring it along there, and then I can grab in a couple more. Because I mean, village, we got, what is that, 6 houses? And then that, so this village is probably 100 years old or so. Not the oldest, because again, dwarves live a lot longer. So you're gonna have to do that time change. So this is like a medium to young kind of village. So we have a decent amount of people who have died in this area that wanted to be buried here. So I'll try and keep it within a decent number that's not overcrowding it too much. Alright, this path is a little smaller because maybe these aren't the quite as visited graves since they're in the back. You can probably grab one more of these just to light up a little more. Let's grab, I think here's a good spot for it. Mix in a bit of moss. Grab those. And there we go. So now all that's left is maybe a little something here. Kind of maybe leave this area open, add some bone meal, and then change the block so it's not all grass. We want to have it similar to this, but maybe a little different. So let's work on the texturing. All right, so here we are. So I've gone in with the coarse dirt and just the grass, kind of in a 50-50 split of that, maybe a little bit more of the coarse dirt. You can see here, just a little bit on the left side here with the noise painter. So went in and just placed all of this area with that just to get a little bit more of the texture. Then went with the bone meal. Just in these spots, it only grows on the grass, so that keeps it a little bit kind of spread out a little bit more so it's not too concentrated. And then I went and removed all the flowers except for these yellow ones, so the dandelions. Since like yellow and the light is kind of the theme of this religion, I thought it might be their way of paying respects to their dead, allowing only the yellow flowers to grow in this area. So I'm put a couple more in just for a pop of color. And that's the graveyard. So I might add in something here, just a little bit more decoration, but the graveyard itself is pretty much done. If you can think of any other details to add, maybe like a little secret, like a button that opens up something for a little secret, that might be fun, little interesting to do. But other than that, I think that's enough for that part. And with that, that is our church and graveyard build complete. So got a nice large addition to the build, the village here, another large area kind of built upon. So we just got a couple more areas. We have this large area here, and then I got the park I mentioned back there. So that seems like at least 3 more builds left for this village. So we're coming very close to the end. We got the tree video coming soon, so that will also really enhance this village. Instead of just the grass on the ground, it'll add a little bit more greenery that's different from that, as well as the regular grass blocks. And the kelp, I guess, that's a bit more green, the seed grass here. But that is everything for today's episode. So if you enjoyed, please leave a like and subscribe for more videos coming soon. Until next time.